In another study, Keltner and Jeffner Steller of the University of Toronto took place up to the observation deck of a tall tower at the University of California, Berkeley. Compared with the control group, these participants were more likely to report a, quote, greater sense of humility and that the direction of their lives depend on many interacting forces beyond their own agency, unquote, writes Keltner. Quote, awe shifts us from a competitive dog-eat-dog mindset to a perceive that we are part of networks of more interdependent collaborating individuals, unquote. This just scratches the surface of the social and psychological upside, so we'll return to them later in BBC Futures and Immensities series. But Keltner summarizes it like this, quote, awe brings us joy, meaning, and community along with healthier bodies and more creative minds. It quietens the nagging, self-critical, overbearing, status-conscious voice of our self or ego, and empowering us to collaborate, to open our minds to wonders, and to see the deep patterns of life. The Victorian geologist Charles Lyell, once wrote that there is an inevitable discomfort that comes when approaching the vast unknowns of the universe, describing a, quote, painful sense of our incapacity to conceive a plan of such an infinite extent, unquote. To illustrate how he felt, Lyell described a circle of light expanding into the dark. It illuminates as it goes, but as its circumference grows, so does the boundary between light and dark. In other words, he was suggesting that the more we learn, the more we become aware of our true insignificance and how little we know. Quote, while the scheme of the universe may be infinite, both in time and space, it's presumptuous to suppose that all the sources of doubt and perplexity would ever be removed, unquote, Lyell wrote. This is true, but that does not mean that we shouldn't try This is true, but that does not mean that we shouldn't try ever harder to understand our place within the immense world out there. When approaching the unknown, the psychologist Frank Kyle talks about the power of wonder, which he describes as a more active, engaged sense of awe. Quote, wonder is the engine that drives innovation and inquiry, unquote, he tells me. The quote-unquote accidental impetus behind humanity's It implores us to ask how, what, were. It implores us to ask how, what, where, when, what's, what if. Quote, it's one of the most powerful motivations we have as humans, and no one can take it away from us, unquote, he says. In the age of the Anthropocene, he may need this attitude more than ever. If we are gonna navigate the enormous challenges of the coming decades without falling into the twin traps of dismissive hubris or paralyzing dread, then the lenses of sublimity, awe, or wonder may be necessary. With these perspectives, we can approach the daunting unknowns of our time with attentive, mindful reverence, bolstered by the collective power of human thought and imagination. When I look back at the overwhelming day in Wales more than a decade ago, staring up at cloud-capped Snowdown, I know little about the philosophy of the sublime or the psychological benefits of awe and wonder. That what mattered was how it felt on that moment. It felt on that on I'm sorry. What mattered was how it felt in that moment. Perhaps it's part of the human condition to seek solace in immensity. But now I know all that I do, I actively seek out such encounters wherever I can find them, aware of all the enriching benefits that can follow. Sometimes it's good to feel small.